Good morning, class. Today we're going to get into the division of decimals. You remember from yesterday's lesson, we multiplied by decimals. And the steps to that was step 1, multiply your factors as if they were whole numbers. And then step 2 is when the decimals actually come into play. You would count how many decimal place values you have in both factors and then move that many into your product. Okay, so today we are doing division. All right, so let's go ahead and we are on page 7 now, and we're going to divide decimals. You're going to be able to divide decimals, okay? So let's go to page, where's my page? There's my page. We're on page, oh, I forgot what page number we're on. It's been a long day, guys. We've been doing good, though. Hopefully y'all are doing great as well, okay? So we're on page 7, and the objective for today, like I've been saying, is that you'll be able to divide decimals, okay? You'll be able to divide decimals. Now, before we get into the actual steps of dividing decimals, I want to remind you how to set up your division, okay? If you remember your words, the divisor, the dividend, the quotient, okay? That way, when I say divisor, you know what I'm talking about. When I say dividend, you know what I'm talking about. And the same thing for quotient, okay? So when you set up your division, we have the outside number here, and this one is called the divisor, okay? The divisor. Just like that. Inside is called the dividend. Dividend. Okay? And the answer to a division problem is the quotient. Quotient. So when I ask you, what is the quotient between 5 and 2, that means you're going to divide 5 divided by 2. It gives you the order, okay? So that is one way that you can see a division problem. Divisor's on the outside, dividend is on the inside, and the quotient is the actual answer. Another way you can see this is like a fraction, because all fractions are actually division problems, okay? So here's my fraction bar right here, all right? Now, the top number is our dividend, because if you remember, the top would fall in to the house. So this is our dividend. And the bottom number is our divisor, okay? So dividend divided by the divisor. So the top number goes in and the bottom number stays outside, okay? That's another way you can see division problems. And then the last way you can see a division problem would be set up like this. We're gonna have the dividend first, the dividend divided by, which is our basic symbol, by the divisor. Okay? Dividend, which goes inside, divided by the divisor, which stays on the outside. Okay? So those are the 3 ways you can see it. That way you know what I'm saying. The divisor needs to be a whole number. That means this one needs to be a whole number. This one needs to be a whole number. Or this one needs to be a whole number, okay? So when I say divisor, that's what I'm talking about, all right? So let's get into the steps, all right? Now that you know what everything is called, okay, let's get into our steps in dividing. So for step number 1, we need to make sure the divisor is a whole number, okay? So we need to make sure this is a whole number. So I'm gonna go ahead and highlight that, this needs to be a whole number. This needs to be a whole number, and this needs to be a whole number, okay? If it's not, we're going to have to change it into a whole number, all right? So step 1, if the divisor, those are the ones I highlighted, if the divisor is a decimal, if it's a decimal, we're going to move the decimal point to the back, okay, or to the right. That's what I mean by to the back, we're moving it to the right, okay? In other words, we're taking that decimal and moving it to the back until we see that we turn it into a whole number, okay? So look at your divisors, however it's written. If they are a decimal, we're gonna move that decimal point all the way to the back until we turn it into a whole number, okay? Now, once you do that, okay, here's step number 2, okay? You only have to do step 2 if you have a decimal as a divisor. So step 2, we're gonna move the same amount of points you moved in your divisor in your dividend. That's the only time you move the decimal in the dividend. If you move the decimal in the divisor, then you must move it in the dividend. If I did not move the decimal in the divisor, I do not move the decimal in the dividend, okay? So for step 2, we are going to move the same amount of spaces in the dividend, okay? We're going to move the same amount of spaces in the dividend. So once you figure out how many spaces you moved the divisor, you move the exact same amount in the dividend, okay? And then step 3, I just add step 3 so we don't forget, okay? We're going to move the decimal into the quotient, or pop the decimal to the top, which is called the quotient. We're going to bring it up. That way it's ready for us in the answer, okay? Good so far? So the main thing you're looking for is my divisor a decimal? If your divisor is a decimal, you must follow these steps. If your divisor is a whole number, you divide normally, okay? Just go ahead and divide it out, all right? But if you have a decimal, which we're going to be doing today, we're going to have to follow these steps, okay? So let's get into our examples. And we'll do a few of them, okay? So for example 1, let us take 3 15/100 divided by 2/10, okay? 3 15/100 divided by 2/10. So that is written like this, okay? So this shows you right here, the first one is my dividend, and the second number is your divisor, okay? And if you don't know how to set it up, you have a little cheat sheet right here, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and draw my division bar here, okay? Now, if I follow this correctly, it says this 315 is my dividend, and the dividend goes inside. So 3 and 15/100 goes right there, okay? Which means that the second number, which is my divisor, is the one that goes outside, okay? I always like to remember the first one in line gets to go in the store first, okay? First one in line goes in the store first. Second in line has to wait outside, okay? So that's a good way to remember it. Now, let's get into our steps. Step 1 says, if the divisor, which is the number on the outside, is a decimal, move the decimal point to the back. So do you see a decimal? Yes. So we're going to take this decimal and move it to the back. Okay, so I just moved it one place because it just had one decimal place value, okay? Now, since I did that, I have to follow step 2. We're gonna move the same amount of spaces in the dividend. So since we only moved one place here, I'm gonna only move one place here. They have to match how many you're gonna move, okay? So I moved one here, which means I'm gonna take the decimal wherever it's at, okay? And move it one place value over, okay? That's step 2, all right? Now, to make it look nice and pretty, I'm gonna rewrite the problem so I don't get confused, all right? So I change this 2/10 into a 2, all right? And I changed this 3 and 1500ths into 31 and 5/10. Okay? So again, my divisor was a decimal. So I moved the decimal place 1 over to the right, which means I have to do the exact same thing. So I found the decimal point in my dividend. I moved it 1 place to the right, okay, which ended up being between the 1 and the 5. I rewrote the problem just so it looks neat. If not, I'm going to get confused there, okay? So I rewrote it. Now I'm dividing 2 divided into 31 and 5/10. Now we're good for step 3. We're going to pop the decimal to the top so I don't forget. And that's why math, you have to make sure you write nice and neat and legible and everything has a space, okay? So now we're going to go ahead and divide. Can 2 go into 3? Go in 1 time. So 1 times 2 is 2. Subtract, and you get 1 left over. Okay? What do we do next? We bring down the next digit. Okay, and that's a 1. So now I have 2 going into 11. In other words, 2 times what gets me close to 11? 2 times 5. 5 times 2 gives me 10. I subtract, and I get 1 left over. Okay? Next thing we do, bring the next digit down. Once you pop that decimal to the top, you don't have to worry about it down here. Now we're just doing long division. That's it. Okay? So I'm bringing the 5 down, and I have 2 times what gets me close to 15? 2 times 7. That gives me 14. I subtract. That gives me 1 left over. Okay? I have no numbers to bring down. So how can I keep on going? Because I don't see a pattern yet, and it didn't tell me to round, so I have to keep on going. So when you need to keep on going, you're going to add our handy dandy invisible 0. Add him in there, okay? And we're going to bring him down. And he's going to turn that 1 into a 10, okay? So now we have 2 times what gets me close to 10? Times 5. I have a 0 remainder, which means I'm done. I can stop right there, okay? So 3 and 1500ths divided by 2/10 equals 15 and 75 hundredths, okay? Just like that. All right. So this is when your multiplication facts come into play. It'll make you divide faster because you know your multiplication tables, and it'll make you divide a little bit faster, okay? Good? Staying with me so far? Okay. Let's do another one. Let me think of a good one. Yes, okay. Let us divide, so here's example number 2. I'm going to divide 309 divided by 3/10. Okay, 309 divided by 3/10. Okay, now it is written as a fraction form. Okay, but it also means division, okay? Dividend is on top, divisor on the bottom. So when you rewrite this, when you're ready to divide, you remember the top number is my dividend. So it falls inside the house. So he's first on top, he gets to go first in the house. So that is my dividend. So 309 right there, which means the bottom number here is my divisor, okay? So this one is going to stay outside. So it's 3/10 right there, okay? So remember, top falls in, bottom stays out, okay? Now let's go through the steps, all right? Step 1, if the divisor is a decimal, move the decimal point to the back. So look at your divisor. Is that a whole number? Oh, I see a decimal there. So we're going to move that to the back, okay? So I'm going to take my decimal and go, boop. I've now turned that 3/10 into a whole number 3, okay? And to do that, I just moved my decimal 1 decimal point. That's all I had to do, okay? Now let's go to step 2. we're going to move the same amount of spaces in my dividend. So how many spaces did we move in the divisor? I moved 1, which means in my dividend, I'm going to move 1 as well. So we moved 1 here. Oh, I don't see a decimal point there. Where is your imaginary decimal on a whole number? It's right there. So when you have a whole number, add your decimal to the back, okay? And then we're going to go 1 place over. And guess what we put in that empty spot? You guessed it, our invisible 0. Add them in there, okay? So now, what are we dividing? Let's rewrite it to make it look nice and pretty, okay? I'm dividing, I changed 3/10 into a 3. And I changed 309 into 3,090 because remember, we moved this to the back, okay? Good, all right. Now let's get ready to divide. All right, let's take we go 1 digit at a time, okay? 3 times what gets me close to 3? 1. I know that 1 times 3 gives me 3, so I'm good there. Subtract, bring down your next number. Now here's where we have mistakes, okay? Yes, it's a 0, and before I was like, if you get a 0 as a remainder, you're done. But what's different between this one and that one? I have a 9 next, so I cannot skip the 0 and say I'm done because I still have a number to go, okay? So you have to ask yourself, 3 times what gets me this 0? It is 0. Do not forget to put that 0 there. That is important, okay? So 0 times 3 is 0. Get a 0. Now I can bring down the 9, okay? So don't forget that, please. Now let's go ahead and do the 9. 3 times what gets me close to 9? 3 times 3. That gives me exactly 9. Awesome. 0 is a remainder. Now I have to do this next 0 because that is part of the number 3,090. If I stopped right there, I'm just dividing it by 309. That changes my entire answer. So you have to include this 0 because it's part of the whole number, okay? So let's bring it down. And 3 times what gives me 0 again? 0. Okay? So your answer to this problem, 309 divided by 3/10, is 1,030. Can you see where a lot of mistakes can happen in a problem like this? That's why I tell you go digit by digit and make sure you have a number above each digit. If the 3 couldn't go into this 0, or if it gives you 0, make sure you put the 0 up here. Those zeros are important because they're part of your final answer, okay? Good. Now what we're going to do, it is time for you to try it out. So you remember on the back of your page, okay, you're going to put try it out. I want you to try the next couple of problems on your own. Make sure you press pause once you've written it down, and then press play when you're ready to check the answers, okay? So let me give you your problems. There they are. Go ahead and try it out and press pause and come back, okay? All right, let's see how you did. Okay. All right. Step 1, let's take a look at the divisor, which is right here, okay? Is that a whole number? You should have said no, and you move the decimal. 1, still not a whole number. 2. So in this one, you have to move the decimal 2 places, okay? So the next step was to move the same amount in your dividend. So here's my decimal. It's right here. I found it. I'm going to go 1, 2. So those 2 should be the same amount of place values, okay? How many places you move. Now we're going to go ahead and divide. I'm going to rewrite it. 6 is going into 508. I changed it to 508 and 2/10. So now since I see a decimal there, I'm going to bring it up into my answer so I don't make a mistake, okay? I've seen that happen a lot. Now let's go ahead and divide. 6 times what gives me 5? nothing. Okay, I'm gonna put that there because I need that placeholder to keep everything in line. Everybody's gonna have a buddy here, okay? So that gives me nothing. Okay, bring down your 0. 6 and a 50 should have given you 8. That's 48. Subtract. Bring down the 8. 6 times what got you close to 28. 6 times 4 gives me 24. Okay. And then bring down your 2. And then finally 6 times 7 gives me exactly 42. So your answer to this problem is 84 and 7/10. Remember, this is just a placeholder right here. This is just a placeholder. So I don't have to put it in my answer because it's the first 0. I don't have to put it, okay? So you should have 84 and 7/10. Check your work. Pause it if you need to. Now we're going to go over to this one, okay? If you wrote it down correctly, the 2 goes in, and the 2500ths is your divisor, stays out, okay? Now we're going to move it. You should have moved it 1, 2, okay? 2 places. So over here, it's a whole number. Remember, behind every ones place, there's an imaginary decimal there, okay? And we're going to move it the same amount. So since I moved it 2 in the divisor, we're going to go 1, 2, and add in those zeros right there, okay? So what you are really dividing, rewrite it for us. I'm really dividing 25 into 200. Okay, 25 into 200. Now we're going to go ahead and divide. Let's see what you got. 25 into 2, nothing. Okay, you can do this. You still need to, that's fine. 25 into 20, nothing. Move my face over there. There, right. Okay. Let's see. That's 0. 2. Bring down the last 0. 25 into 100. Look, into 200 is 8. Hopefully you got 8. And 8 times 25 is exactly 200. So 2 divided by 2500ths is actually, remember those zeros are not needed because they're before the whole number. So it equals to 8. Okay? So go ahead and check your work and see if you have any questions. All right? Go ahead and log. If you need to go back, go ahead and go back into the video. Press pause so you can write whatever you need to write. And we will see you tomorrow, okay? Go ahead and get into your assignment for the day and finish that, please, okay? Have a great day, guys. See you tomorrow. Bye.